All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order, and we'll start off with our first agenda item, 154, 156 Northborough Road. For people that are listening, for people in the audience, we had heard this request at our previous meeting. However, there was an error in the mailing to the abutters list by a couple of Marlborough residents that are technically abutters weren't notified properly. So it was determined that the applicant needed to come back in and go through this process again. Those things being said, I will, if you care to say anything, you're welcome to. I will open it up for public hearing to see if anybody new is here to make mention or comment on it. Otherwise, my sense is that we would be of the same mind and will incorporate our discussion and findings from the previous meeting for the record, and then move forward with the decision. So, anything you want to say?
No.
Okay. Public comment is open on this. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment on 154, 156 Northborough Road? Okay. Anyone want to move to close public comment?
I'll move to close the public comment, or the public hearing, I guess, or
Whichever it
again?
is. Yeah. All right, all in favor? Aye. So would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Was our last decision like null and void then, or?
Yeah, because it was improperly noticed.
Okay.
So this will, I mean, technically it's not, but someone could sue based on it for improper notification. So by going through this process, this one will take
Okay.
precedence. I think the main thing we want to do is incorporate the conversation, discussions, and findings that we heard last time, since we're not going to go through the whole process again, into this vote and decision.
Okay.
Want to take a stab?
So I make a motion to approve this as, as I guess stated in the last meeting. I don't know how you want to.
So I think we're approving the variance, and approving the variance based on discussions and findings from our July 19th? July 17th meeting.
17th, yeah. So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. You're all set.
Thanks.
If the rest of the next two applicants, I know we're right on time at this moment, but we have our town clerk here that has a brief update he wants to give us on town code. It'll take about 5 minutes. That way he doesn't have to wait for the whole meeting to be over and he can go home and have dinner. Mr. Haggerty.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me come here tonight. I wanted to come before your board and let you know the same information I provided to Planning and the Conservation Commission and trying to get ahead of something. One of my responsibilities is to be the keeper of the town code, and that document over time, like any documents edited over time, it has typos, it has mistakes, inconsistencies and things, and I'm going through a review of that right now. What started the process, believe it or not, was dog licenses. And how many dogs constitutes a kennel? And we had one section that said one number, one section a different number, and a state law that said a third. And that, you know, it's like anything else, when you pull a string, it just kind of unravels a bit. So I'm just going through this process looking for inconsistencies, errors, things along those lines. So I'll be working with Lori to go over the sections that pertain to your board And if there are any issues that pop up there, we'd bring them forward in the normal course of things. I'm not looking to change anything. This is just grammatical type things. If there's an inconsistency, hey, why do we use the term, for example, in one section of the code, it refers to a single-family dwelling, single-family, there's another term, single-family residence. There's 6 different terms that refer to that. Is that significant? Does it matter? So I'm just trying to get ahead of this right now, that if you became aware, I wanted you to find out ahead of time why I'm doing this, not to say, well, why is he messing around with the code? That's why I'm doing this, so.
Okay.
And that's it, and we'll be back in the normal course of business, but that's it.
All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the next item, which is 43 Highland Street. Katie, will you read the notice?
The petitioner is seeking a variance to construct a 2-car garage attached to the property with side setbacks less than the required setback of 15 feet to the property line in Residence B District. Relief is requested under Section 174-83D3.
Okay, I will open it up to you to explain what you're trying to do, and then we will have some questions. We'll open it up for comment.
We wanted to add a garage. We wanted to add a garage onto our home.
Mhm.
Doesn't have one currently, and, we're getting older, and would like to have our cars inside, an inside structure as we get a little older. The garage has a second story, so that I have a little bit of a workspace there, and it's connected to the house with a 5-sided turret.
Yeah, stair tower, essentially, so that it's an attached garage.
Make sure you're
Yeah.
up by the
So
microphone.
basically,
and
we're trying to
that's
make an attached garage, which I guess is the part we should specify, so, to enable her as she gets older to go in and out of the garage without having to go back outside.
on. Okay,
And in order to have the garage be attached, we would violate the setback.
So just to be clear, there's no garage now currently?
There is no garage currently.
So this is strictly limited. The issue here is just about the setback,
Correct.
nothing else.
one of the things I don't see here is the height of the garage.
The height of the garage, it's the top of the tower. I can tell you, since I drew the plans myself, I guess that's one dimension I forgot to include in there, is I believe a foot lower than the height of the house. So it stays lower than the existing house.
Okay. And it's attached, so we don't have,
Gotta get the perception here.
yeah. Do we have, I know that's one of my questions. Since it's attached, we don't have that same issue with an additional structure, the additional garage not being 2 stories without that variance being approved as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that would make it
So-
simpler.
I just want to make sure we're kind of making sure that's addressed and heard at this point, because, it came across my mind, it's like, oh, a 2nd story in a garage, like, oh, wait, it's attached. So, just wanted to check in on that. Any other?
Well, just looking at the code, so I think we're looking, just correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but we're looking at a 35-foot, based on the code, a 35-foot height. Is that the height of the new structure?
Of the new structure, as I said, I unfortunately forgot to include that dimension on here, but I do know that it's a foot lower than the existing building, which I don't know the height of.
So it's, are you aware of whether or not the existing building was in compliance?
The existing building was built in, I believe, 1989, so it was built according to codes at that time, which I suspect were, at that point, the 2.5-story, 35-foot thing was codified in the law at that point, I would imagine, but I'm not sure.
And if not, it would have had its own variance. be my guess. Did you build it? You,
No,
Oh.
we purchased it, and when we purchased it, there was nothing about a variance in the purchase process.
okay.
What is the encroachment? I am not sure which map to look at that has the dimensions,
Did
but.
the official plot plan end up in there
Yeah,
at all? Yeah, the official plot plan should have it on there. I believe it's 8.2 or 8.3 feet is how far it is from the property line. It might not be in that building set. I think that we had a separate plot plan.
Is that you're showing it as 3.3, is that correct?
Yeah, this is showing,
We've since submitted changes, so it might be that the updated plans were never given to you.
Yeah, we did. Is this
Yeah,
the one?
this is showing the old one, so I guess,
So, so we will actually need
oh, yeah, looks like
an updated
plot plan,
Plot plan?
obviously, yeah.
in order to
You
officially
do have it,
approve
but it
this.
might not have made it onto your desks, unfortunately.
That's old dimensions.
This is the old one?
That's an old one, because we've been working with our accommodating neighbors here, and they, wanted to have the garage set back a little bit further, so I revisited the design and made it so that it's 8 feet off of the lot line instead of only 3 feet off of the lot line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have that in an email, I can just send it.
Paul, any questions?
well, I guess a couple of questions, or at least a comment or two. So there's an existing driveway,
Correct.
and so then the driveway is gonna be, looks like that's gonna be expanded to accommodate.
Correct.
And so, I guess, the typical concern I have with that is, does that cause any runoff? Does that cause any drainage issues? Is that gonna, adversely impact the lot next door? Which I don't have the answer to that question.
Well,
but
currently,
it's-
the lot next door kind of slopes towards us anyway, so the drainage is already
So the grade is,
the grade is
yeah.
already pointing away from the neighbor's lot.
there's no, the topo would show that. As far as, so as far as the design goes, so, I guess it's hard for me to completely tell, because this is I guess the older plan where it's still showing,
The different setback,
3.3
correct.
feet to there. But I guess the connector, what you're calling the turret, or where the stairwell is, that takes up quite a bit of width. And
Correct.
so if you're needing or having to encroach,
That's
where
what
you're not
that's
needing
what
to
I
go.
changed in the redesign,
I would say a narrower staircase could probably be incorporated, so you don't have to still encroach as far over. Looking at this, again, there's I see it's a 24-foot wide garage.
Well, I wanted to ask that. I think it's 22. Can you tell me what the width of the garage is?
Well, it looks like the length is 22 and the width is 24.
correct, correct. Yeah, and if that's the case, then you should have the correct set of building plans, you just wanted the correct plot plan.
I believe, I'm looking at this, and it's showing 24 wide.
Yeah, that's the most current version of the
and
building
22,
plan.
22 deep.
Correct,
And then so this is also being constructed here,
yes,
and so we don't see what the width of that is. And so that's all looking to be stairwell,
correct,
so you can access the second floor.
correct.
So that's,
We'll also get from the first floor,
so
too.
that's my, again, comment is that, that could be done as a straight stairwell and have it be a lot more narrow, so it's not encroaching quite as much.
Yeah, the whole idea was the house is built to be a replica of a Victorian-style home, so the whole idea was to build something that kind of speaks to that same building language. So just a normal narrow stair would kind of ruin that whole idea.
I think, if I could, part of it is that you could have the garage closer, but you have a porch to the side.
Well, there's a
There's other-
front,
'cause
there's a
I mean-
front porch, but then there's this new
Right.
turret that's being built to connect.
But I mean, I'm just talking strictly about the garage. If you wanted the garage to be closer to the house, one of the problems you have is that porch on the side. Doesn't allow the garage to be shoved closer to the house, you know what I mean?
You know, perhaps, I'm almost wondering, because like on this, you know, like on this plan, it's almost showing like that there's another door here on the garage. So, and then on this, it's not showing, the garage doesn't show a door. So that doesn't even seem consistent.
Let me mind if I walk up and?
Sure.
Yep.
So here's the, here's the plan, here's, that's the car entrance.
Yep.
So that's that.
Yep.
That's why I asked my first question.
Yeah,
It looks
well,
like the driveway's being expanded, but that would appear to be a,
Right there.
okay. And that just ties into this, that ties into that more than,
Exactly.
okay. Yeah, all right, so now, all right, now I'm following that better. But I still, Dave, like, I still think it, I understand it's like, there's aesthetics that are coming into play, but if need be to get a two-car attached garage that's completely enclosed, I think some things could be done to make it a little more compact, so it's not as much of a encroachment into the, into the setback there, but, again, then the last comment would be if anyone I don't know if any abutters have a question or concern about that, that's always
I guess that's the one thing I'd like to state for the record.
that's always,
too.
that's always my last and
Yeah.
biggest concern,
That's the
so-
one thing I'd like to state for the record too, is we have been working closely with our neighbors and making sure that we come up with something that they can live with and that they like as well.
Because 3.5 feet is, again, you're saying now it's 8 feet though, not 3.5 feet?
9.3.
Oh, you have it pulled up on your phone?
So now it's up to 9.3?
9.3. And 11.2 on the,
Yeah.
The front corner, so the back corner's 9.3? That,
9.3.
to me, that's a big
That's a whole extra foot at this
that's a
point.
significant difference. that's,
And I think,
3 feet, it's technically very difficult
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pass, staying on your property to pass to the backyard type thing.
right,
In a non-zero lot line, type setting, so 9 feet makes that makes a significant difference to me anyways.
right. I think also, while we can discuss, are there ways to kind of condense that stairwell and bring it further or closer to what the setback's supposed to be? I'm not sure you can bring it back a whole nother 6 feet. So either way, they would be encroaching and would need a variance. It's just, are we talking because it's 2 feet over or 6 feet over or whatever? So,
On it was more of a
okay.
comment than anything.
No,
so.
I had the same questions. So, Debbie, anything on?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. Can you kind of describe what the changes have been to the plans as you've been working with the neighbors?
Of course. So initially, obviously, as you see from the plot plan that is in front of you, we had it only 3 feet off the lot line. So to address that, I shifted the garage forward slightly and then shrunk the back dimension to make it, but originally it was a 24 by 24 square garage. I shrunk the back to 22 feet. And then I also shifted the whole garage over towards the tower so that it was kind of actually overlapping the tower slightly even.
Yep.
So that I could get it as far over and still have the idea of the tower read and work and not have the roof line become too complicated.
So the 22 by 24, does that include, that's the total space, including the door, what looks like there's a door and a window above it?
Yes.
No,
No?
no, no. That would be in the,
The inside of the
that would be,
garage?
so the 24 is from the, from the corner of the garage to the corner of the garage. That door with the window above it
Yeah.
would be part of the stairwell there. So that's what I'm saying, that's,
We put the door in so that you could get into the garage from the front of the
oh, no,
house.
that makes perfect sense. I'm just saying, there's no width dimension delineated for what that is right there.
Right, what is that?
So, there's not a scale on this, so,
Uh,
oh, no, there is,
yeah,
I'm sorry, there's
yeah,
a scale.
Yeah, everything should be 1/4 inch equals a
Yeah.
foot.
So, you could, I don't know, I could measure that out and guess, but I don't have a scale ruler on me, but
Can you guess what that is?
Yeah, let me
then, the
just take a
width
quick
of
peek at the
that?
drawing to give me a better
So when you,
sense. Yeah, I'd say probably about 11 feet or so.
what is 11 actually?
that turret, I was gonna guess at least 10, so.
Yeah, the distance from the existing house to the edge of where the
So
square
the
garage
stair, so from like here to here is 24 feet?
Yeah.
And then from here to where the existing house is, looks to be about 10 or 11 feet. And
It's
that's,
like 11.
and that was the part initially I was saying, like, you could do a stairway that would be a lot more narrow.
Yep.
But I understand that's the design element, that's the aesthetics that went into it.
Okay.
But I also don't think going from 11 feet down to 5 would give enough for.
To get it
stair
clear.
To track back and forth to
Right,
get up
so
there.
you'd be going for a 2-foot encroachment as instead of a 6-foot
Right,
encroachment, or
exactly.
whatever yeah.
Okay, thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, I would also like to hear from the neighbors also.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think it looks relatively straightforward to me. I think I am most interested just to hear what the abutters said.
Great.
Yep.
Or not say.
So, I do have one
of
last
course.
question. What exactly is the hardship? The soils, what's the hardship that we're supposed to be kind of looking at this from for the variance?
The hardship is that, as you were kind of describing yourself, that in order to get an attached garage on there, which is obviously something you would find useful as you're getting older, in order to put any sort of attached garage on there and make it work, we would need a variance anyway.
But you wouldn't if it wasn't a 2-story garage. You could move it in that much closer if it wasn't 2 stories, right? And didn't have to do the turret to get up and,
Correct, but I guess what Bina didn't outline quite as much is that the purpose of the upstairs part is to be kind of a studio for her massage therapy business. So it's kind of more than just a garage to park the car in. It's also partially, an investment in that.
okay.
Like when you're asking what the hardship, I guess, you could almost, again, without seeing a topography or knowing what the soils are, there would be ways to, you could do you could do an attached garage behind the house. It's not optimal, it's not practical, but there's plenty of room behind the house to do, again, I don't know, is there a slope there? Is there,
I think there's a septic system
is
there.
there a ledge there? Is a
There's a
septic there?
system there.
I don't have any of that. That doesn't show.
Yeah.
That doesn't show on that. But, those are, like I said, when you're asking what the hardship is, those are questions that, I understand you want a 2-car garage. Is there a way to do it that
Right.
are you only limited to get a 2-car attached garage by putting it right there?
That's
Yeah.
pretty much the only place we can put it. There's a septic system in the back, and the other side, the land slopes off, and there's just not enough.
Right, and there's
side
less,
on the
and
other
there's
side.
less width on the other side
Yep.
anyways, yeah.
Okay, let's hear from the neighbors. If you can go up here or to the other place, just give name and address before you get started.
Mike Canova,
Mary Beth Canova, 41 Highland.
41 Highland Street.
Okay,
So they approached us, Bina and Peter approached us, I don't know, 6 months ago, and said they were planning this. And at the time, we thought there was, we had both thought that there was a 10-foot setback, not a 15-foot setback. So at the time, the encroachment, I think, was, of the 10, there was gonna be a 7-foot encroachment, so I was gonna put it like 3 feet off the lot line, and I said, you know, that's not gonna fly. So Ian redesigned things, and in the process of redesigning things, came up with another 5 feet, I believe. But then we found out that, in fact, the setback wasn't even 10 feet, it was 15 feet.
Mhm.
But at that time, we were okay with the design. So even though the setback was 5 feet further, the design that they had come up with was fine with us. I mean, it's gonna be beautiful. The house is a really interesting house as it is, so it's not like it's gonna be an eyesore. And certainly, there was the issue of how close it was, because we have a barn on the other side of us, so we're kind of gonna be in the middle of 2 barns, basically, which is okay. I mean, I don't have an issue with that, because again, their house is a nice-looking house, and they take care of it. So that's where we are. They have a chicken coop right now. The chicken coop is gonna become a lot nicer chicken coop as part of this, addition. It's gonna kind of move to the far side of the garage from us. So it's, you know, there are some improvements, that it's, you know, it is what it is. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll let Mary Beth speak for herself. As far as I'm concerned, you know, we talked about window placement and things like that. We've been involved with it. I'm just, with all these numbers that were thrown out, I'm just not 100% sure what the actual encroachment is right now. So if you could clarify that.
we're not either, and actually we can't actually approve this tonight because we need an updated plan that shows this, and I'd request that the plans that you submit include the rest of the dimensions. So we can't actually approve it. It looks, from what they're saying, and an example that I saw here, the setback is going to be 9 feet 3 inches, close to, you know, a half a foot off of 10,
Which is.
much better than 3.
Yeah, much better than 3. Yeah, and even better than I thought it was gonna be before we came here.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know what the legalities and logistics from your end are, but, we're okay. As far as the drainage, our lot is significantly higher than theirs, and our drainage goes into their lot as it is. So, from that standpoint, and, you know, we're also going to be, both of us are gonna be taking trees down that are in bad shape. So it's gonna make the lot look a little different, but it's gonna be an improvement, I think, in some ways, so.
Agree. Appreciate, the process and where it was and how it got scaled back.
Okay. Do you feel like there's going to be enough kind of vegetative screening? Have you talked about where exterior lights are gonna go so that they're not shining in your
We
house and
haven't,
stuff?
we haven't, again, I'm an electrician, so, it's, I guess that's an issue, but I can't imagine why they would have lights on our side of the structure. It wouldn't serve their purpose.
Well, maybe something in the back, because your house is kind of behind it, so something in the back that might just by chance really bother you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing the electrical work there, so
Don't put the lights
All
on.
right.
probably not gonna do anything that's gonna negatively impact me.
Yeah.
But, those are all good questions. We have a pool behind our house, and they're tolerant of us with pool parties and stuff like that, so we get along really well with them.
Okay.
So I don't have a particular issue with this project. Any issues that we had, we've seemed to have worked out. I think we probably will do some screening, because we're taking down a significant number of trees between us, but they really need to come down.
Yeah.
For safety's sake. So we'll probably do something.
So that's something if, since again, we can't approve this, if you want us to kind of have as a finding that they will work with you to get adequate vegetative screening, those are things that we can kind of condition our approval on.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about screening particularly, just that maybe because they're into that space, that side of the house just not be used as a storage area, you know?
Mhm.
That's all.
Okay. Yeah, that's good feedback. Any other? All right, so I'm not going to close public comment, but I will take a motion to continue
Continue
this,
the hearing?
so that the applicant can get updated certified site plan and updated drawings with accurate and complete dimensions.
All right, I move that we continue the hearing on the, I was just looking for, was it variance, isn't it?
It's variance, yeah.
Variance, yeah, sorry. We continue the variance at 43 Highland Street.
Second that?
Should we continue the variance to our next meeting in September,
Yeah.
which is,
September 18th.
Okay. Amend it to our next meeting on September 18th.
You might want to put a time on that too, then.
yeah, I think
Do you
that
have
can be.
anything on the agenda yet?
Do you
Want
have
to do
anything on
that?
the agenda for September?
Just one,
Just one?
to be quick, but I haven't published anything, so.
I would, is that already, does that first one already have a time set?
No.
I'd recommend doing this first,
Doing this first
because
because it's
there's
probably
going
gonna
to be
be-
not a lot to discuss, so.
Okay. So the motion is to continue this to September 18th at 7 PM.
I second that.
Yep, I have it here.
Do you second?
I'll second that,
Okay.
sure.
All in favor? All right, okay. We,
Besides the plot plan, what else do we need?
drawings with
More dimensions.
complete and accurate dimensions.
We good?
We're good. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very much. Thank you.
Um,
Continuation, or is it?
actually, hold on just a second. I think we do need to, officially sign the continuance.
Okay.
We're not extending.
We're not extending it, so probably nothing needs to be,
Yeah,
Well,
Unless-
we're not
are we nearer?
extending the, decision, but we are continuing the hearing.
right.
So we do, it's still,
Oh, is that a,
yeah, continuation / extension, so we gotta do both. So we're to September 18th, you said?
Yep.
At 7 PM. Applicable.
but there's no need to extend anything, is
No,
there?
we don't need to extend. We have plenty of time to make that decision. So, we just need one of you to sign and date.
Will the neighbors have to come back on a future weekend?
Nope.
No.
Unless you want to, unless between now and September, you feel like you need to come back and say something, your comment is on record.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're mostly on time.
Moving right along.
We will move on to our next item, which is 118, 120 Turnpike Road.
Read this in.
Please.
The petitioner is seeking a special permit to construct a private parking garage to contain approximately 500 spaces as opposed to the allowed 3 cars or 1 truck in the business and highway districts and Residence A districts. Relief is requested under section 174.85C10.
Gentlemen,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. My name is Stephen Cox. I am the manager of this investment for the ownership.
Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering.
okay.
Has done the drawings throughout this process. Why are we here? There's a good question. You don't have to ask it, I did. We're here, we purchased these buildings, these are two office buildings off of 9 in 2014.
Yep.
The first building
You could,
was,
just hold on a second. You're talking a little soft. I want to make sure you're getting everything good on the, okay, fantastic.
okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
In 2014, if that helps, in two different steps. The first directly from an investment fund in Boston, and the second, the front building had been foreclosed, was vacant. We bought that from Wells Fargo. So this is actually, if it makes any difference, this is actually the first time that this office park, is what you call it, both buildings have been under common ownership. So there's been the separation of ownership and the separation of interests for many years, since 1986.
Okay.
In any event, since 2014, we've made significant improvements. Title V septic system for $800,000. We spent $1.7 million on the front building, just upgrading it and leasing that building. And the rear building, the 120 building, was occupied by Hewlett Packard for 10 years and vacated a year ago, September. The front building is currently full, but it's a typical office building with rollover. So what we're doing is we're expanding the parking available on the site in order to accommodate leasing the vacant building, the building now in the rear, and then releasing the front building as those leases roll. And it's really that simple. The building's vacant now. You probably know that the tenants today are constantly looking to add more people in less space, cutting back their space. Ratios of 200 square feet per person are now down to 126. We see this in all our buildings. We own 7 office buildings in suburban Boston and 5 projects, and have been working here since 1997. So what our goal is here is to ask for your approval of this special permit to allow the construction of this parking deck ramp in order to really finish stabilizing the property for the long term. Now, as part of that, we own, as part of
Take the microphone with you.
Yes, I know. We have been to planning, numerous times, and we've been to Conservation Commission numerous times. Conservation Commission has approved the project. Planning, we're on what may be our final meeting next Monday, subject to tonight. So, highway business is this piece of the parcel. The parcel is 20 acres. Residential A is this piece of the parcel. And the current Conservation Commission controlled Breakneck Hill Park butts here. In fact, we have a little P-rock path so tenants can walk up and walk into the park. So we have the A zoning here, and we have the highway commercial. And we, in talking to Aldo Town Council in this process, we all agreed that we had the ability to expand 30 feet into our zoning, residential zoning, because it's a related use. We already meet the parking requirements here and the rest. So we're doing that. And then to really solve, to put this whole package together, if you will, what we've done is, and if you, do you have a plan? It's in your packet, but. No. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So what we've decided to do is we're going to gift 6.2 acres of this residential land to the Conservation Commission. The line would be, this line right here. It leaves us enough room to maintain and do what we need here, and it frankly substantially expands the park area for the Conservation Commission. So those are the two key parts of it. The last part that you'll see in your packet is we're upgrading the plaza area between the two buildings. Remember, they were never owned by one ownership before. So what we're doing is, there's a plaza here, we're simply upgrading it, we're adding pervious pavers, we're adding a fire pit, landscaping, tables, that kind of thing.
Right. Do you want to go through some of the engineering aspects of it, or do you want to start off with some questions?
Folks,
Yeah, actually, sorry, where was the area where you're gifting?
Okay, this might show a little bit of it. This is an aerial photo. So this is the existing site. It's
Okay.
this right here.
With Route 9's right at the
Yeah,
at the
Route 9's
bottom,
down
okay.
here. This is the two office buildings.
Right, okay.
And that's the future garage. And then this triangle here would be the gifted land.
Okay.
And this is the existing,
There's that line I pointed
Yep.
out that we need to maintain in order to maintain the building.
Right, so you have the setback,
yeah, the setbacks
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. And then this is the existing conservation
But the-
land.
But the triangle area is what you would be gifting?
That's right.
Okay,
The
Yep.
majority of it.
okay, thank you.
So we can just kind of show reference where everything is. So right now, these are the existing two buildings. Route 9 is out here. In the back area is a pretty large parking area. And that's essentially where that parking garage is intended to go. So I'm going to show it here. Once you kind of get zoomed in on it, that existing parking was right through here. So we're kind of reusing the already impervious area, trying not to encroach too much, create new impervious, any new clearing. We are using that 30-foot setback just so that the garage can line up with existing parking aisles, and this side can still be used efficiently with the parking garage. We don't have to redo everything. We didn't use the full 30 feet, but we did have to use some of it to get all the access
But
drives
the
and
garage
everything
is
lined up.
basically sitting on the existing parking field.
Yeah.
Right, so you're not going and excavating existing
No, we
green
are-
space?
We
yeah.
are not.
No, and actually, we had the landscape architect do a section through, kind of just to show how it would be sitting into the hill a little bit and not excavating up the hill. So this is kind of looking cross-section. The first two decks of the garage would be
Sorry,
semi-buried
is
in.
the space, that would be, what would it be?
Yeah, the
It would be
buildings are over
south of
here.
to the right, the trees you're showing, that would be south of the garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these trees are down in this direction over in here. So it just shows that, we're trying to fit it right into that topography. We're trying not to cut up the hill. We're actually gonna use the back side of the garage to retain that edge and kind of sink it
Okay.
into that area a little bit, the most we can.
Our argument might be one argument, not an argument, but a position would be it's basically kind of fitting into the hill, if you
Mhm.
will.
Right.
Given the elevation, the hill is extremely steep.
Mhm.
And so the existing trees, and there's a lot of them, we're adding 69 more, are above
Right.
the
Yeah.
ramp. So it's not sitting out there like a sore thumb. Is that fair?
Right, so and obviously the view from behind is, it's
There
really
is
not
no
stick,
view
you're
from
not really gonna
behind.
see
Yeah,
it
and
like
we've
that.
talked with Open Space Committee and the Stewardship Committee for the Breakneck Hill, and
Yeah.
they're in favor of this, you know, especially with the views being blocked and then the donation of land. There were earlier concepts that had parking going up trying to wind it up into the hill and cut it up into there. But, you know, that wasn't obviously preferred by them, and, you know, they've really been supportive of this option. So like we said, we have been through almost all the way through planning, and we've been through conservation. So we've had reviews by Fuss and O'Neill for all the technical aspects of it, complies with all the stormwater standards, you know, all the design standards of site plan review, conservation bylaws. Let's see.
The garage is not it's a private garage, if you will, for the two buildings. It's not a public garage.
Yeah.
And it will be operated within the same hours of the office. So the office building is open 7 to 8. The garage is open 7 to 8. It'll have a gate. The lights will be off in the garage at 8 o'clock at night. So that was all part of our conversations with the planning, open space, and the people, the residential up on the hill is not going to be any more lit than it is right now at night.
Do you have I'm just curious, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here,
No.
but do you have the view from Route 9, if you
Yes.
will? Are the buildings sort of hiding it
We have a
partially?
few.
It's the
We have a few different,
the front and the back buildings hide it somewhat. But we have extensive landscaping. Vito, do you have the
we're going to show some of these.
elevation? That's the side. So that's if we were standing west looking at it.
Yeah, that's if you're standing,
And then if we're
looking
standing
from this
on,
direction here.
yeah, and if we're standing on Route 9, do you have that elevation?
You have this one here. Yep.
Okay.
And then if you're standing,
Where's the
I don't have that landscape option. Yeah.
Well, then, we're gonna have a hard time answering questions.
That's looking from kind of this angle right here. Yep.
We don't have the other,
We have it in the package, so we can show them.
Yeah, I would say you're not gonna see this much from Route 9.
No.
it's a really fair question. And so what we're doing is we have 27 vertical avocado kind of trees that are one of the things we're doing is pure native species and
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
You did bring your microphone.
microphone. So anyway, they're native, all native species, not cultivar native, but native species. So anyway, we have 7, so they aren't arborvitaes, but we have 27 here,
Yeah, if you look in your package.
or around
there-
the corner. And that, because it's a good question. So what does it look like from Route 9?
That's near the end of the
So there's
package.
This is what it looks like from Route 9. And then
And
this portion of the ramp here is actually blocked by the building, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm just trying to picture it
it's
here.
good.
It seems like
It's
it is
good question.
partially blocked by the building.
It is.
but
yeah.
not
Most of it
entirely.
you won't actually see from Route 9 itself.
Right, because it's actually set all the way
yeah,
back.
it's in the back lot,
Right.
lot line.
Okay, thank you.
However, if you did see it, I don't think it's that bad to look at.
No.
Thank you. You know, but,
Yeah, they've incorporated a lot of kind of design items to break it up. The parapet walls are up high enough to block headlights when they go around. There's kind of been a lot of thought to the looks of it going into
that
this.
is screening, kind of
Yep.
opaque screening you see going on the vertical
Mhm.
to help with that.
Yep.
But if you would drive out there and just pull in and look to the back and visualize where it would be, it really is, I would argue it's less obtrusive than the Eversource parking ramp up on Corderville Road, even though the building's largely in front of it, but.
Yeah, and I mean, for our own benefit, looking through the minutes you've had with that Katie provided for the planning, obviously you've gone through a pretty detailed process already. But the 48-inch wall they were talking about, that's what you're talking about, just as they're coming down?
Yeah.
That way the headlights are
You
are
can't,
sort
the
of blocked?
headlights won't shine out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's these right here. Just so as you're driving around, it's, you know, above your normal headlight
Right.
distance, so it won't be shining out
Right.
into anywhere.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Is there level underground?
No, the first level's at existing grade.
Grade?
Yeah, so basically replace the existing ground that's there, kind of level it out, but
So
the-
how many parking spaces are there, and how many will remain?
so,
How
There's,
many will you add?
there's 500 currently on site.
yeah.
There's no parking ramp, there's 551, all right? But the ramp sits on 125 parking spaces, and sitting on the parking field. So we're adding 3 levels of 125 cars each. So the net addition is 375 cars.
Okay.
The reports all read 500 or 503, but that's because they're counting the parking that it's already sitting on, the parking that's there.
Mhm.
Right.
So it is true, if you would take that piece and you'd add all the parking that you would access in there, it is 500, but there's already 125 there.
And will some of the parking lot will still remain though?
Yes,
Yes,
yes. So this end of the parking lot would remain as it is. And then all the parking out to the front, and it's another lot to the side over here.
Okay. Is there a shortage of parking? Like, what is the occupancy? So
Yeah.
you've had
There
a
is.
vacant building,
Yeah.
but now it's full?
well, no, now we flip-flopped. The front building was vacant, and the back building was 100% occupied. So there was no shortage of parking. Now what we've done is we've leased the front building while the back building was still occupied. There is a shortage of parking, significant shortage of parking, and we've had to control that with, well, just a parking management, if you will. Presently, today, there isn't. If you went out there today, you'd say, Stephen, what's the matter with you? You can, there's 300 cars, stalls I can sit in. That's because the back building's vacant, but the front building's 100% occupied. So in terms of, in real estate terms, the current parking ratio on the site, no parking ramp, given the 160,000 feet of the 2 office buildings, is 3.4 to 1. Code is 3.3, so there's 3.4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. This raises it to 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 feet. We have had, I misspoke, I'm terribly sorry. It raises it to 5 per every 1,000 square feet. We've had users that want to use it as a campus, potentially, have asked for as much as 6. And this is a Westboro current tenant. We're working with a Marlboro current tenant that's asking for 5, neither of which we can accommodate. We can accommodate in one building, but you can't accommodate in both. And this is, our only investments are suburban, they're not in the city. This is a common request. We just finished, we own a building off of Concord Road in North Reading, and we just finished a similar process. We just redid the entire, got approval to redo the entire parking field to bring that to 4 spaces per 1,000. So it's really, this request kind of solves a lot of the historic and legacy issues surrounding this project, including the residential land sitting there.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Do you know when that was originally designed and built?
Yes, in 1986.
Okay,
The back building was actually done first,
okay.
and then the front building. But what happened is the back building was done by the original landowners, and then they got approval for the front building, and I think they actually sold that while the building was being built. So they, not even the original owners owned both buildings at the same time. It really should be.
So my question is, on the second to last page of the letter you submitted, is that increase existing traffic by more than 10%, and adding 375 parking spaces to the current 551 is far more than 10% in terms of parking spaces.
Yeah, but it's no more traffic because we only have 160, we have the same buildings. So if we were to lease all the buildings, you'd just have this chaos as people expanded their employee base. Unless you can certainly say, yes, you can say, if you leave this alone and you lease the buildings, both buildings to people with, requiring only 3-to-1 parking, code
Yep.
parking, then yes, you are 100% correct. If we're allowed to lease these buildings
Yep.
to market parking, there will be more traffic. Yes, there will be. That's right. I didn't look at it that way, but that is right.
Right. So, in your letter, you say that it will not increase traffic.
Well,
The only issue,
I mean,
usually you'd worry about Mass Highway because we're on the state highway. It
Yep.
would be under the thresholds of their increase that would require any type of review or permitting or new approvals through them at least.
so, yeah, so it's an increase. It's more than 10% in terms of just spaces.
yes.
But when you start talking about coming and going and times a day, and the fact that not all 375 are going to show up at the exact same time,
it never
the impact of the actual increase in traffic is less than the 10% at any given point in time, is,
I mean, that's correct. I guess I
Okay.
was thinking of the traffic on Route
Yep.
9. I wasn't thinking about the number of comings and goings at any point in time.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear and,
That's right.
right. And then on the, with the kind of demarcation line of where you're going to be donating the land into Conservation Commission and for Breakneck Hill, is there enough of a buffer to make sure that your uses and your maintenance don't impact that open space in terms of the plants and the species and everything else?
Yeah, so what we did was, there's actually a kind of a drainage feature back here where this whole area drains down and there's a drainage swale that runs across and there's a large 8-foot diameter drainage structure. So that was part of the thing. We wanted to make sure we have enough room for that. So we own that, we can maintain that, the town doesn't have to worry about that. And then we also wanted to leave enough space, obviously for your rear yard setback. So right now we have about 60 feet back there, which is plenty of room we have a cleared access around the back, and then there's still, 30 feet of wooded area between us and them. So it
Okay.
should provide enough buffer,
In the
so we wouldn't have to
grade
impact
also,
them.
what's the grade within that 60 feet bottom to top? How many feet in elevation is that?
It varies. Some spots it goes up, it kind of goes down and then back up. So in one spot it goes up about 8 feet. Other spots it's kind of just down and up a little bit. So it's a manageable area. It isn't like we're cutting into a steep slope. We have trees coming down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was more concerned with your ongoing maintenance of
Yeah.
it, not impacting the part that's now owned by the
Yeah.
town and the conservation district.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Like, slight question, on the plan here and there's like two structures.
These ones over here.
Yeah, are
Yep.
those new also?
They're recirculating sand filters. They're existing now.
They're there now?
It's a treatment system for the septic system.
Okay, and then on the little bump out, kind of closer to Route 9, is that,
Yeah.
so on this plan here, it's showing something, but it doesn't look like
Yeah,
there's
in
anything?
here, that's
Yeah.
where the leach field is for the septic.
Okay, so that's all,
Yeah, the soils are not very good all the way up until about here,
I can imagine.
and then all of a sudden it transitions to a nice sand. So that's where the septic is, and that's why that originally was cut out oddly shaped like that.
But that's a parking lot also.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's parking over the top of
Leach
that
field
septic.
is underneath.
Oh, there's parking over that, so that'll still continue as?
Yep,
Yes.
that'll be maintained. So essentially, right now, what they do, the septic all comes out, there's a series of tanks and treatment system over here. It gets pumped over to the filters. It basically just falls through the sand and collects in the bottom, and then comes back to here and eventually gets pumped over to the leach field. It's kind of a complicated system, but, you know.
It works.
Yep, it works.
Frankly,
And
the
then
original one
obviously, I mean,
didn't,
you've
that's
gone
why
through
it's
the,
there.
you've gone through the planning board, you've gone through conservation, so those are wetlands there.
Yeah,
So you're outside the.
the buffer zone goes right up to here, so we did
Is that
have
what, I
a,
was gonna say, that's what that dotted line is around?
yeah, we do have this encroachment into the buffer zone, but they were okay with that.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yep, yeah, usually they're no disturb is this inner 20, which is up in here.
Uh-huh. I mean, I will say that it's a pretty nice looking structure. It's a pretty well-designed structure. That's obviously, I'd say quite an expense, quite an investment that you are making. And, I mean, structured parking is not a light endeavor.
No, it's not
And
cheap.
it could certainly be done cheaper than what I think is being proposed. So, I commend you guys on that. I think it's,
Thank you.
I think that's, pretty nice what you're doing. The open space land donation is, I think also quite nice. So, I guess has there been any, I know the traffic thing got brought up. Has there been any vetting or speaking with public safety as far as that goes?
Not us directly with them, but I
Is
know
there any,
they,
so there's been, I don't know, I haven't heard of any.
fire department commented on the plan.
Yeah, fire did.
Fire, they get sent out, fire, police, everyone gets sent the plan during
Right,
site
so
plan review.
there's been nothing back from them that would be adverse?
Nothing objectionable. They just wanted to ensure that we have clearances and everything through there, which we do, so.
No, I think it looks it's pretty good, as I said, and it's definitely quite an investment you're making in the property there.
Debbie, anything else?
I think I'm set as well.
Okay. I will open it up to comments in the audience, which there aren't going to be any because no one's here. Not that you can see that from the TV. So, yeah, I think I think it's an appropriate structure for the type of buildings that are out there. The nature of office space has definitely changed over the years, especially since 1986. A lot more people crammed into smaller and smaller spaces, so since we have no mass transit in this area, that kind of gets us stuck with cars and structured parking. So,
Yeah, just like for clarity, Craig, like, it seems like they've pretty much gone through a pretty thorough ringer here with multiple planning board meetings, been through conservation. Our role here is just to approve the special permit, right? It does seem like planning has already vetted out an awful lot of the details that we've looked through
Yeah.
here, so.
And we've received nothing from the planning board that's of concern from them to us to be considering in this?
no, I mean, they've gone back and forth on various things like the parapet height, like using native plants as opposed to ones that aren't, and so, they'll go through lighting, they'll go through, all the things of site plan approval that they go through.
Mm-hmm.
I think technically we could probably throw something in if we were really worried about it and ask them to make sure that the planning board addresses it as part of our approval of special permit, but I think the planning board's
Yeah,
doing a
pretty well.
good job on it, and
And there's been nothing from any abutters of concern or,
we haven't received anything from abutters.
There have
So,
been,
I mean,
I don't want to.
Conservation Commission's one of the abutters, and I think
Yeah.
they're okay.
There've been, you know, through this process, there's been numerous public hearings, and frankly, except our discussion with the open space group and board members, of course, there hasn't been any,
Have there been abutters that have
Objection.
shown up at the meetings, or no?
no one has.
No one has, yeah, and obviously,
Said anything, so.
right, and obviously they're,
somewhat surprised there's not
Yeah.
one person in the room here tonight.
Actually, I've been surprised.
So I guess
you
that,
know.
that answers
I
that.
guess that answers that.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to close public comment.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. I think we're all pretty much on the same page here in
Yep.
terms of this. It's a good use. It's an adaptation that needs to be done to keep up with the times and in line with what should be going on at that
Right.
property.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it is in a pretty fairly, you know, industrial area. It's Route 9, there's a number of buildings there. I think it all fits in.
Agree.
all right. Got a motion to approve the special permit?
I'll make a motion to accept the special permit as requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Great, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration, listening, and
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. We have minutes somewhere. I know I printed out a copy. Yeah, I mean, I read them. I didn't have any comments on them. Which was the one note that I had on my version of it. No comments.
Did you send those out on email, Katie, or?
Yes.
You did, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, thank you.
I didn't have a comment either. Or concern, or,
Yeah, I don't have any comments either on the minutes.
Oh, this was, so this was,
This was
This
July
was the-
17th.
this was the other 154, 156
Yes,
Northborough Road
this is the one
approval.
where we said we would bring those comments into the
Yep,
record for this one.
okay, yep.
And then the Bartolini's on Maple Street for the two-family.
Yeah, they look fine to me.
Okay.
so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 17th.
As written.
And I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We already heard the town clerk, so next meeting is September 18th. Make sure we all have that in our calendars. We have 43 Highland coming back with their updated information, and anyone else who wants to speak about it, since it'll be on the agenda again. And
Yeah, we have one person coming in, they have an existing non-conforming carport. All they want to do is enclose it, so they're not building out or anything. But because it's non-conforming and they're making changes, they need to apply.
Okay, so a couple of standard things ahead of us in September so far. Anything else that we need to cover? All right, with that, I think we can adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I would gladly second that.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.